The air around me is full of little tiny, I don't know if they're mosquitoes or midges or something, like little black flies. They're not bothering me, thank God, but there are actually thousands of them. I don't know if you can see them in this video. Fascinating, really. Anyway, what I'm thinking about is has nothing to do with flies, actually. I'm thinking about, what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about the boundaries of the self. The boundaries of the self was actually the name of a conference I went to about 3 years ago, organised by the Experiential Psychology wing of the British Psychological Society. And that was the theme of the conference. You know, what does it mean? What are boundaries? What is the self? What is the relationship between these things and so on? Very interesting set of papers and workshops. Where am I going with this? Well, yeah, I've been thinking about the relationship, I guess, between that sense of self and the idea of boundaries which confine that sense of self, or give that sense of self an identity. I think without any sense of boundaries, then having a concept of self would probably be, I don't know if it would be meaningless or not really, it would certainly be different. So I'm thinking about that sense of self, the concept of boundaries, and the body, and some of the sort of sensory modes that the body has of accessing itself and accessing the environment. I'm assuming that, this is probably assuming way beyond the data, but I'm assuming that certainly a sense of self which is somatic, a bodily sense of self, is an evolutionary adaptive trait. I'm sure that any sort of animal which identifies itself with its body is more likely to survive than one that doesn't, one that regards itself as a kind of I don't know, passenger or visitor or ethereal partner or something like that. I would guess it's probably less likely to survive than one that is totally identified with the body, or that doesn't have any of that sense at all. Because having a sense of self which identifies the body, particularly in terms of something like ownership and proprietary rights, suggests that you would look after your body, you would take care of it, you would not allow it to get damaged, you would want to see it reproduce and have a good time and so on. So I'm assuming that sense of somatic self has that sort of adaptive function. And one of the things that implies, I guess, is that whilst the sense of self might vary in scale, and this is something I've talked about elsewhere, sometimes we feel that we are sort of shrinking inside our body, so we exist within ourselves, perhaps just behind our eyes, or something like that. And sometimes we do feel like we're extended. We extend into our loved ones, into our families, into our communities, possibly into our nation sometimes in terms of an identification, and apply those same sort of criteria of ownership to wider entities or to narrower entities. Nevertheless, I think there is a kind of default setting, which is the entire somatic body. We seem to fluctuate across the boundaries of the flesh, really. At least that's sort of how I'm understanding it. One of the entailments of that idea, I think, is to do with sensory mode of access. So I'm saying access to internal sensations, but access to the world. Because after all, the primary interface between our body and the world is the surface of the skin, which suggests that one of the primary modes of a kind of somatic self-awareness is going to be that which touches the skin, in other words, the sense of touch. So in a sense, I feel like I'm kind of defined as a body by the fact that when I lay hands on something, something lays hands on me. So I stop where that post starts in this particular case, and that stopping point is defined by the stimulus that's hitting my fingertips. And presumably that's the case all over my body right now. I stop where my clothes start, which is indicated by the nerve receptors and cells on my skin telling me where that is. And similarly, my feet stop where the ground starts, because I don't need to repeat myself. So there's a sense, I think, in which the sense of touch is kind of, at least in my way of thinking right now, is marks a certain sort of demarcation of self, possibly one which is primary. Because I think I've said elsewhere, at the level of the skin, the really exciting stuff happens. It's at the level of the skin that one is actually injured or nourished or has pleasures or pains. So the size and shape of the sensory body is defined by the size and shape of the things that can touch it. Okay, so let's just move on one little bit from there, just to see where I can go with this. Suppose, just as a kind of thought exercise, suppose that my sense of self, my sense of somatic relationship with the physical world, which at the moment is defined by the sense of touch on my skin, suppose instead of being that sense of touch which defines my boundaries, it's my sense of vision. Suppose I felt myself to have a special relationship, perhaps a relationship of ownership, or a sense of belonging, or whatever that strange sensation is that makes myself feel like a bounded identity. Suppose instead of that being skin, it was where my eyes, where my vision extends. So in the way that my hands extend and touch the post, and that touching is the extent of me, I'm thinking about what would it be like if my sense of self was where my vision touched something. So I end where the intentional gaze from my eyes ends. So I am extended in space to to wherever that vision stops, really. So what I'm doing now is I'm just trying to feel that sense as I look around. I'm trying to posit myself and identify with this sort of visual body, if you like, this extended soma which goes out into the world and touches the world. And so I still end where objects begin. Instead of my fingers touching these objects, it's the intentionality of my eyes that are touching these objects. So I am contained within all of those boundaries. It's a very odd sensation, actually. Can't quite lose the other sense. As I'm walking, there's still quite a strong trace of me walking as a physical skin body, if you like, a touch body through space. But I can also just feel the slight shifting to that. So instead of this touch body, it's this sight body, this eye body, or whatever it might be. But it's not moving through space, actually, it's changing shape slightly. There's a sort of morphic quality to it. Yeah, I think I'll hold it down, try to